After 3 years of sleepless nights, I launched my app and hosted a launch party. My family didn't bother to come. They all went to celebrate my brother's promotion. 20 minutes after everyone left, Mom texted, "We need to discuss your company." Dad wrote, "This isn't a real career." My brother sent, "Congrats on your little project." I just replied, "Check tomorrow's news." I, 32M, stood in the middle of the empty venue at 9:47 p.m., staring at a room full of catered food that nobody had touched. The champagne tower I'd specifically requested stood untouched in the corner, each glass reflecting the dim overhead lights like tiny mirrors of my humiliation. 3 years of 16-hour days, maxed-out credit cards, and ramen dinners had led to this moment, and I was completely alone. My phone buzzed. Mom's text came first, asking if we needed to discuss my company and whether I'd thought about stability. 20 seconds later, Dad's message appeared, stating bluntly that this wasn't a real career and that I should have stayed in corporate law like my brother. Then my brother's text arrived, congratulating me on my little project with a smiley face that felt like a knife between my ribs. I looked around the venue one last time. The banner reading MindLink Launch Party hung slightly crooked above the stage where I was supposed to give my speech. The presentation deck sat loaded on my laptop, full of metrics and growth projections that nobody would ever see. I'd invited 47 people. My girlfriend had broken up with me 6 months ago, calling my obsession with the app unhealthy. My college friends had stopped returning calls after I'd canceled plans one too many times. But family was supposed to show up. That's what they'd always told me growing up. Instead, they'd all driven 3 hours in the opposite direction to celebrate my brother's promotion to junior partner at his firm. The same brother who'd made partner on Dad's Connections and Mom's Country Club. Networking. The same brother who'd never worked past 6 p.m. in his entire life. I typed my response to all three of them in the group chat. Check tomorrow's news. Then I walked out, leaving the catering staff to clean up my failure. What my family didn't know was that MindLink wasn't just some app I'd built in my spare time. It was a revolutionary mental health platform that used AI to connect people with therapists in real time, breaking down the barriers that kept millions from getting help. More importantly, they didn't know that 3 days ago, I'd signed a deal with one of the largest health insurance companies in the country. They didn't know that TechCrunch, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal had all scheduled features for tomorrow morning. They didn't know that the empty venue tonight was intentional. I'd known they wouldn't come, and I planned accordingly. The real launch party was happening tomorrow at noon, with investors, journalists, and industry leaders who actually gave a damn. I drove home in silence, my hands steady on the wheel. The anger I'd felt earlier had crystallized into something colder, sharper. For 3 years, I'd listened to Dad's lectures about throwing away my law degree. I'd endured Mom's comments about when I'd get a real job at family dinners. I'd smiled through my brother's condescending questions about my little coding hobby. Every single time, I'd bitten my tongue and kept working. When I got home, I pulled up my laptop and reviewed tomorrow's schedule one final time. The press releases would go live at 6 a.m. Eastern. By 7 a.m., the news cycle would pick it up. By 9 a.m., my phone would start ringing. I set 3 alarms and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months. My phone exploded at 6:47 a.m. I ignored it, getting up slowly and making coffee the way I liked it, strong and black, the way I'd learned to drink it during late-night coding sessions. The notifications kept coming, a constant stream of buzzing that I let pile up while I showered and got dressed. I put on the suit I'd bought for today, the expensive one I'd hidden from my family because I knew they'd ask questions about where I got the money. By 8 a.m., I had 63 missed calls. Mom had called 18 times. Dad, 12. My brother, 7. The rest were from cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends who hadn't spoken to me in years. I didn't return a single one. Instead, I drove to the hotel where the Real launch event was being held. The room was already filling up when I arrived. Venture capitalists I'd been courting for months, journalists from major publications, and representatives from healthcare companies looking to partner. My co-founder, someone I'd met at a hackathon 2 years ago, greeted me at the door with a grin that told me she'd seen the news coverage. She asked if I was ready, and I told her I'd been ready for 3 years. The presentation went flawlessly. I explained how MindLink worked, demonstrated the technology, and shared our user testimonials. People who'd struggled to find mental health care for years had found help through our platform within hours. Teenagers who couldn't afford therapy had accessed support that literally saved their lives. The metrics spoke for themselves. 200,000 active users in our beta phase, a 94% satisfaction rating, and partnerships with over 3,000 licensed therapists across the country. When I announced the insurance company partnership, the room erupted. This was the piece that changed everything. Mental health care would now be accessible and affordable for millions of people who'd been locked out of the system. The journalists were already typing furiously on their laptops. My phone continued vibrating in my pocket throughout the entire presentation. I let it ring. The Q&A session lasted an hour. Investors wanted to know about scalability. Journalists asked about privacy protections and data security. Healthcare executives questioned our vetting process. For therapists, I answered every single question with the confidence of someone who'd spent 3 years thinking about nothing else. When it finally ended, my co-founder pulled me aside and told me that we had preliminary acquisition offers coming in already. Companies were willing to pay numbers that would make me wealthy beyond anything my father had ever achieved in his legal career. I told her we weren't selling, not yet. We'd built something that mattered, and I wanted to see it through. I finally checked my phone at 2 p.m. The messages were predictable. Mom's texts had evolved from confusion to panic to anger to desperate pleading. She wanted to know why I hadn't told them, why they had to find out from the news, why I was ignoring her calls. Dad's messages were shorter, more controlled, but I could read the shock between the lines. He'd sent links to the Forbes article with no comment, just the link, 3 separate times. My brother's messages were the most interesting. The early ones were congratulatory, almost manic in their enthusiasm. He'd always known I'd do something big. He'd always believed in me. He was so proud. The later messages, sent after I hadn't responded, turned defensive. He'd wanted to come to the launch party, but the firm dinner had been mandatory. He tried to reschedule, but his boss wouldn't allow it. The lies were so transparent, I almost laughed. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went to dinner with my co-founder and our core team, the people who'd actually been there during the hard times. We celebrated properly, toasting to late nights and small victories and the moment we'd finally made it. Someone asked if I was going to call my family back, and I said maybe later, knowing I wouldn't. The articles kept rolling out over the next few days. TechCrunch called MindLink a game changer. Forbes profiled me as one of their 30 under 30. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature about how the app was disrupting the mental health care industry. My LinkedIn exploded with connection requests. Strangers recognized me at coffee shops. Through it all, my family kept trying to reach me. Mom started showing up at my apartment, but I'd already moved to a new place across town. Something nicer, something that reflected where I was now rather than where I'd been. Dad sent an email asking if we could talk, really talk, man to man. My brother tried going through old mutual friends to get to me. I let them sit in their discomfort for 2 weeks before I finally agreed to meet them. Not at their house, not at my place, but at a restaurant I chose, on my terms, at a time that worked for my schedule. I showed up 15 minutes late, not because I was actually late, but because I could. They were already seated when I arrived. Mom looked older than I remembered, stress lines creasing her forehead. Dad's hair seemed grayer. My brother fidgeted with his water glass, unable to meet my eyes. The power dynamic had shifted so fundamentally that it felt like looking at strangers. Mom started talking immediately, apologizing for missing the launch party, explaining that they hadn't realized how important it was. Dad chimed in, saying they'd always supported me. They'd just been concerned about my financial stability. My brother added that he'd wanted to come. He really had. But circumstances beyond his control had prevented it. I let them talk themselves out, watching them scramble for words that might undo the damage. When they finally fell silent, I told them very calmly that I understood. I understood that they'd chosen my brother's minor promotion over my major life achievement. I understood that they'd never taken my work seriously. I understood that their support had always been conditional on me following their prescribed path. Mom tried to interrupt, but I kept talking. I told them about the nights I'd worked until 3 a.m., surviving on coffee and determination. I told them about the times I'd wanted to call them, to share my small victories, but hadn't because I knew they'd just remind me to be realistic. I told them about the investors who'd believed in me when my own family hadn't. I told them about building something that actually helped people, something that mattered, while they'd been busy celebrating networking and nepotism. Dad asked what I wanted from them now, and I told him the truth. Nothing. I didn't need their money, their connections, or their approval anymore. I'd built my success without them, and I'd continue without them. My brother finally spoke up, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. He asked if I was cutting them off, if I was really going to throw away family over one mistake. I corrected him. It wasn't one mistake. It was 3 years of mistakes, 3 years of dismissal and condescension, and being treated like my dreams were less valid than his conventional success. But I told them I wasn't cutting them off completely. I just needed them to understand that our relationship was different now. They didn't get to show up and claim credit for my success. They didn't get to tell their friends about their son who'd made it big in tech. They didn't get to pretend they'd been supportive all along. If they wanted to be part of my life going forward, it would be on my terms. They'd have to accept that I knew what I was doing, that I didn't need their advice or their validation. They'd have to accept that I'd succeeded despite them, not because of them. The dinner lasted another hour, awkward and stilted, full of careful words and loaded silences. When we finally parted ways, there were no hugs, no promises to do better, just a mutual understanding that something had fundamentally changed. Update 1. It's been 3 months since that dinner, and the distance between my family and me has become the new normal. Mom texts occasionally, surface-level messages about weather and holidays. Dad sends LinkedIn articles about the tech industry without comment. His way of showing interest, I suppose. My brother hasn't reached out at all since I ran into him at a mutual friend's wedding last month, where he avoided me like I was contagious. MindLink, meanwhile, has grown beyond my wildest projections. We're now operating in 12 countries, with over 2 million active users. The insurance partnerships have expanded to cover major providers across North America and Europe. We've hired a team of 40 people, and I've had to learn how to be a CEO rather than just a founder. The irony isn't lost on me. My family wanted me to have stability and success, just in the package they prescribed. Now that I have both, on my own terms, they don't know how to process it. I've been invited to speak at conferences, appeared on podcasts, and last week, I got an invitation to speak at my old law school about alternative career paths. My personal assistant, someone I hired 2 months ago because my schedule became unmanageable, asked if I wanted her to send my family tickets to an upcoming gala where I'm receiving an innovation award. I told her no. They hadn't earned the right to watch me accept recognition for work they'd never believed in. I started dating someone recently, another founder in the mental health space who understands the obsession and the drive. When she asked about my family, I gave her the abbreviated version. She didn't push, just said that sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. I'm starting to believe she's right. The thing about revenge is that it's supposed to feel satisfying. I'd imagined this moment for years, the moment when I'd proven them all wrong, when they'd have to confront their dismissiveness. But now that I'm here, it mostly just feels empty. I'm successful, yes. I'm wealthy, yes. I've built something meaningful that helps people. But the validation I thought I'd feel from proving my family wrong never materialized. Instead, I've realized something more important. I don't need their approval anymore, and I haven't for a long time. The anger that fueled me for 3 years has burned out, leaving behind something colder and more clear-eyed. They're just people who made choices that hurt me, and I'm just a person moving forward without them. Update 2. 6 months after the launch, my brother showed up at my office unannounced. Security called up, asking if I wanted them to send him away. I thought about it for a long moment before telling them to let him up. He looked different, tired, maybe, or humbled. He sat across from my desk in the corner office I'd earned through sleepless nights and relentless work, and he told me the truth. His promotion, the one they'd all celebrated instead of attending my launch, had fallen through 3 months ago. Firm politics, he explained. Someone else's kid got the spot instead. He'd been passed over again last month for a position he was qualified for, and he was starting to understand what it felt like to work hard and have it mean nothing. He asked if I was happy now, if this was what I'd wanted. I told him it had never been about him specifically. It was about respect, about being seen as competent and capable. It was about doing something that mattered to me rather than something that looked good on paper. He asked if there was any way to fix things between us, and I told him honestly that I didn't know. Time might help, or it might not. But I wasn't interested in pretending the past 3 years hadn't happened just to make family dinners less awkward. Before he left, he mentioned that Mom and Dad were struggling with the distance. They'd built their identities around being good parents, and my success without them had shattered that narrative. He wasn't asking me to forgive them, he said. He just wanted me to know they were hurting. I thanked him for telling me and showed him out. After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time, looking out over the city. The truth was, I'd already moved on. My life was full of people who believed in me, work that mattered, and success that I'd earned. Whether my family heard or not wasn't my responsibility anymore. That night, I drafted an email to my parents. I didn't send it immediately. I let it sit in my drafts folder for a week, editing and refining until it said exactly what I needed it to say. When I finally sent it, the message was simple. I didn't hate them, but I also didn't need them. If they wanted a relationship with me going forward, it would require genuine change, genuine respect, and genuine acceptance of my choices. The ball was in their court. They responded 3 days later with a request to meet. This time, they came to my office, to my territory, during my work hours. This time, when Mom started to cry, I didn't feel guilty. When Dad tried to explain their perspective, I didn't feel obligated to understand. And when they finally admitted that they'd been wrong, truly wrong, not just sorry for the consequences, something small and hard inside me loosened just slightly. I don't know if we'll ever get back what we lost. Probably not. But maybe we can build something new, something based on who I actually am rather than who they wanted me to be. Maybe that's enough. Or maybe it isn't, and I'll be fine with that too. Because the success I built, the life I created, the impact I'm making, none of it depends on their approval anymore. And that's the real victory.